episode of the museum, How to Respond to a Robbery, 1948 style.
To set the scene for this film, the crime of robbery of a liquor store is used. An important part of every investigation is to find an eyewitness if possible. An eyewitness can consist of the victim, such as a proprietor of the store, or a person passing by or living in the immediate vicinity. An eyewitness does not necessarily have to be one who saw everything, but can be any person who can add any important detail to the investigation, regardless of how minor it may be. All calls, such as this one, go into the business office where officers attempt to evaluate and dispatch the necessary police equipment to the scene. In a major crime such as this, the desk officer attempts to save time by getting pertinent information from the person calling in, so that the pickup information may be broadcast to all cars. This will serve to expedite the investigation and will allow the police units that are dispatched to the scene to be on the lookout for the criminals who may be speeding towards them. In addition to the message, the radio operator will dispatch the unit specified. Upon receiving this message, the assigned police unit will so report and will then In proceeding to the scene of the crime, the police car will be operated at a normal rate of speed, unless the radio operator indicates by code that the case is of an emergency nature and that they are to operate as an emergency vehicle. When operating as an emergency vehicle, the unit must use the siren and red lights, and although other vehicles on the road must yield the right-of-way to them, they have no right to disregard traffic conditions which might cause an accident and which they could ordinarily avoid. The officers arriving at the scene first must immediately secure information which will serve to identify the criminals and their means of escape. Time is very important at this point, so the basic information should be broadcast as soon as possible to avoid allowing the criminals to get so far from the scene that they may become lost in the maze of streets and people. Should the detective unit arrive at the scene shortly after the patrol unit, the uniformed officers must convey what information they have collected to the detectives. If the uniformed officers are no longer needed at the scene of the crime, they should return to their car for assignment or pursuit of the criminals, as they will be far more useful in searching the vicinity of the crime. To repeat, it is important that the basic information and descriptions of the suspects should be broadcast as soon as possible. This first pickup information may later be improved upon as to accuracy or added to as the case may be. In the event it is believed the criminals are trying to leave the city, a blockade may be activated. Such a blockade will be activated by the captain on duty, directing the lieutenant of the business office to broadcast the blockade code. This blockade is activated by radio code, and each unit takes a definite prearranged assignment, establishing a blockade around the entire city within a matter of minutes. Blockade equipment is maintained at each blockade post in order that the necessary equipment may be immediately available within as short a time as possible. The equipment is also set up according to a prearranged plan, and the plan is flexible to allow for day or night blockade procedures, or setting the equipment on 4, 3, or 2-lane highways and according to the speed zone of that location. Specific units are assigned to man the blockade posts. The remaining units in the field also operate according to a plan, covering off on the beats left uncovered by the units operating the blockade posts. The special detail and detective units are assigned from the business office to fill an immediate need in any area, to assist with the investigation, or at blockade posts. Plainclothes units would be assigned to cover railroad depots, bus depots, and the airports. All points into and out of the city would be covered. The San Diego County Sheriff may also operate a blockade in the county. Either the Sheriff's blockade in the county or the San Diego Police blockade of the city may be activated to assist each other. This city and county blockade covers all main roads into and out of this area. In addition to the city and county blockades, the Federal Bureau of Investigation may enter into the case if a federal law has been violated, or if they cannot actively enter into the case, they will make their facilities available to police and sheriff's departments. These facilities may consist of making the information in their criminal files available to the police. These files are useful in identifying criminals by their fingerprints, by their method of operation, by the criminal's description, or even by their nicknames. Also, the FBI Crime Laboratory may make a scientific analysis of evidence sent to them by a law enforcement agency and send their conclusions back, even sending an expert to testify at the trial if necessary. With the Federal Bureau of Investigation acting as a national clearinghouse for law enforcement agencies on crime reports, criminals' fingerprints, descriptions, and the like, their files are quite comprehensive, and as such, there is a great likelihood of their being of assistance in many cases. It is not uncommon for criminals to steal a car to aid them in committing their crimes, and later abandon it and steal another to throw off pursuers. In this picture, the criminals have mechanical difficulties and are forced to abandon the car. It is also not uncommon for criminals to wear extra clothing, which may be removed later to alter their appearance, or make a complete change of clothing as soon as possible, temporarily grow a mustache or remove one, and the like. Anything that will alter their appearance and conceal their identity. Therefore, in securing descriptions, officers should stress peculiarities of dress and physical characteristics which may distinguish the criminal from other persons on the street. Also, officers must be alert for the changed appearance of criminals when looking for them. Crimes are committed wherever the opportunity to do so is present. In stealing cars, they may first look for keys being left in the car's ignition, and if none are found, will resort to other methods to start the car they select to use. Upon discovery of the car used in the escape, the officer should immediately report this information to headquarters for decision as to further action. If the pursuit is fresh, additional units will be dispatched in an endeavor to apprehend the criminals before they can escape from the vicinity. After notifying headquarters, the officer should immediately attempt to find an eyewitness who may be able to furnish valuable information as to criminals' actions and especially the direction and means of their escape. operate the plan, the scene of the crime, or as in this picture, the point where the suspects were last seen, is the focal point. The area is blocked off, and a minimum of 4 officers are assigned to conduct the search on foot. Each officer stays within his assigned section until recalled. In covering his assignment, each officer should search in toward the focal point. In all such searches, it is important for all officers to make as many contacts with citizens as possible, without interfering with their search duties. Citizens who are or have been working outside and would likely to have seen or will see the suspects should especially be contacted. In these contacts, the officers should furnish citizens with enough information that will enable them to aid the officers in watching for the criminals. This method adds considerably to the number of persons who are on the lookout for the criminals and diminishes their chance to escape. Motorized units will assist in the search also, searching the area adjacent to the foot search area. Gathered. In view of the fact that the original escape car was found in the vicinity where this car was stolen, it is very likely that it was stolen by the wanted criminals. Therefore, the information on the stolen car, together with the fact that it may possibly be driven by the criminals, should be immediately broadcast to all police units. In operating a blockade, one car may be situated below the blockade in the direction of the oncoming traffic to pursue any car that may attempt to turn off and evade going through the blockade. In the event of hot pursuit, the pursuing officers will make radio contact with headquarters, such pursuit, and the route they are traveling, along with any change in direction of travel. With this information, the radio dispatcher will in turn give it to the cars in the field who may attempt to close in on the suspect's car. Stopping the suspect's car, the officers must attempt to stop their car to the rear and slightly to the outside left of the other car. The officer who is not driving should immediately alight and approach the criminal's car from the right, after looking through the interior of the car over quickly from the rear window. He should then direct the occupants of the car to get out on the left side of their car. Meanwhile, the officer who was driving should have alighted and, standing near the police car, cover the left side of the criminal's car. One officer will search the prisoners, while the other will keep them covered. The officer conducting the search should give all directions in order to avoid confusion. In placing the prisoners in position for the search, they must be spread eagled enough so they cannot readily move into a standing position. Once in position, the officer must conduct a thorough search of the prisoners, removing all offensive weapons and evidence. In the event a gun is removed from a prisoner, it should be unloaded as soon as possible, preferably by the officer doing the searching, in order that the officer doing the guarding does not have to divert his attention from the prisoners. The procedure of keeping a loaded gun in the officer's pocket or waistband should be a point to guard against. In handcuffing the prisoners, several methods may be used, one perhaps being as effective as the other. For example, if there are enough handcuffs, each prisoner may be handcuffed separately, as in the picture, or they may be handcuffed together in groups of 2, 4, or even 5 if necessary. Circumstances generally determine the best method that could be used. When the officer doing the searching must move to a different position to search another prisoner, he should always walk behind the officer doing the guarding, and never in front of him, in order to avoid crossing his line of fire. Another precaution in making such searches is that the officer doing the searching should not hold the gun in his hand too close to the prisoner's body. The procedure used by the officer in the picture of laying his gun hand on the prisoner must be avoided. In placing the prisoners in the police car, precautions must be taken to prevent their escape and from attempting any assault upon the driver of the car or other officer. This requires their being placed in a proper position in the police car and constantly guarded by the officer who is not driving. Carelessness in placing or seating prisoners in the car or a lack of vigilance can very easily result in serious injury to the officers and the escape of the prisoners. All prisoners of the police are immediately taken to the city jail and booked. The booking procedure consists of a thorough search of each prisoner and removal of all property, except miscellaneous small items necessary to his general welfare in the jail. This property is removed for the purpose of preventing the prisoner from using it to injure himself or any other person, or to effect his escape. The property taken from the prisoner is itemized on his booking slip, a copy of which is given to him as his receipt. Personal property is kept locked. Weapons or evidence are held for the trial. After the search, the jailer makes a booking slip record of the prisoner's personal history, securing his name, age, address, crime for which arrested, place of arrest, and other necessary information. After the search and recording of personal information, all prisoners are fingerprinted. A copy of these fingerprints is filed in the Police Records Division, and other copies are forwarded to the Federal Bureau of Investigation and also to the California State Department of Criminal Identification and Investigation. These agencies, in turn, will report back to the police department of any past records of arrests or whether the prisoner may be wanted by some other law enforcement agency for some other crime. After fingerprinting, major criminals are photographed for purposes of future identification. When the booking procedure is completed, the prisoners are then placed in cells pending further investigation and court trial. The show-up is conducted for the purpose of allowing officers, victims of crimes, or witnesses to view prisoners. Before the trial and during the investigation, the prisoners will be questioned and their statements taken. Present police methods of interrogation revolve around the knowledge of interviewing techniques and psychology to gather the information necessary, rather than the use of force. Force in securing confessions is not allowed in courts, and the modern police officer resorts more to the use of intelligence and strategy. Upon taking the prisoners into court, the officer's job is finished after he has intelligently gathered and presented his evidence and testified to the facts of the case.
We really hope you found this video interesting. If you did, please give us a thumbs up down below and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. We post new videos as they become available. For more information on the San Diego Police Museum, visit our website, and of course, we are open to the public as well. And as always, thank you for watching.